Yo, 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 what is going on, COD Familia? It is your boy BN, aka Mr. Kingdom Builder. And I wanted today to react to Gunz's recent video titled, Will I Leave Noir? Echo Rallies Me, as I just found this to be interesting. We haven't watched anything yet. However, parts of, I think, the reasons that I do find it curiously intriguing is because, one, Gunz ended up joining Noir back in June 30th, right? So we're talking, what, that's 6:30, right? So 7, 8, 9, 10, basically 4.5 months ago, right? Playing out the season thus far. Then we ended up getting the recruitment video, right? How to join. This was done July 2nd. So what, a couple days after joining? And then we get the video today that was released 19 hours ago. So on the 18th of November. And I thought we'd give this a listen. So as always, if you enjoy the content, make sure you throw us on because it helps out a lot.
What's going on, guys? Your boy Gunz here, and today I'm gonna be talking about a little bit about what's going on in Noir. I've had a lot of people messaging me saying, "Yo, what's going on in Noir?" Yesterday, a bunch of people sent me screenshots of players getting zeroed, screenshots of players leaving, screenshots of people already lining up to join other alliances. Like, what is going on in Noir, right? I did ask Saturo if he wanted to make some comments, but he said that you guys are too trolly, so he's gonna opt out. But I will touch on some stuff. I won't say absolutely everything of what's going. People are gone. Well, as you guys can see, in Noir, we would have a full 200. And now we only have 141. Some people have gone to the NAP Alliance and or 3D. These are some of the players that either are no longer going to be with Noir or they weren't doing good in terms of like their activity, right? So if we scroll through here, let's see. Beans PP, Big Real, like a lot of these. Beans PP, I think he just chose to go somewhere else. Oh no. I don't know. I haven't really talked to him. I just heard that he wasn't gonna be continuing with Noir. As you guys can see, there's a lot of very strong players here that and I'm not gonna read their personal goodbye messages, but one of the things that some of them were saying was that they're trying to prioritize. Majority of the people were saying they were trying to prioritize their real life, right? So what does that mean? I think that whenever you're in an alliance like Noir, which was, we were number one in power, we're no longer number one in power. I think we'll get up there again to contest for it, but we'll see. When you're in an alliance like this, like the demand is pretty insane. The demand is pretty insane. I think people had to get at least a minimum of like 12 million merits. And to a lot of us that are hardcore gamers, like, you're like, oh, 12 mil merits, that's nothing. But dude, 12 mil merits, if you are working 12, 14.
Okay, so we'll pause here for a sec. There's a couple things that he's mentioned so far. Number one is on the part of people that have been getting zeroed, people that have maybe been opting to leave for whatever personal reasons that may be, whether they will continue with the game or not. I've actually had a few people from Noir already that have reached out to me. We might be doing a separate video on that as well. And for anyone that is in Noir, if you are on your way out, if you're lowering your activity, even if you're planning to continue playing there, I would very much love to hear from anyone that's interested in sharing just what your experience has been over the past couple seasons, going from, what was another epic fight, or I guess, I don't know if I'd say epic, but from 3 seasons ago when there was the TFS battle, and then from last season, not really having a lot, this season, not really having a lot of PvP, at least as much as from a number of seasons ago. And what has that feeling been like? Has there been buildup? Has there been wanting of more? Has it felt a little lackluster? Has it felt a little like we've underachieved or maybe underperformed or underengaged in some areas? I would really be curious. So if you're interested in reaching out and wanting to share your POV and your story for being in Noir, like I said, I'm happy to listen. I'll probably be doing a separate video on that at another time. So just feel free to reach out to me in DMs. But again, I have had a couple people, like as I mentioned so far, that have reached out that have shared a decent bit of their experiences in Noir. And I will say, from the few that have, what Gunz is saying here on them having IRL things that are coming up that have been a part of the reason on why they are either opting to not play in the main alliance, might be migrating out, stopping, it is accurate. I think when you are the number one and you're the top dog, again, you have a lot of eyes on you. This has been the case ever since King, back in Kingdom 2, was the number one alliance. Again, this was just when the game was starting, of course. But even when TA was the top alliance, when TFS was the top alliance for a pretty long period of time, and then Noir took that crown. I mean, again, it takes a lot. And it's not to say that a number one alliance can't last forever throughout the game's lifespan. It's just unlikely. I just don't think it's the highest percentage thing that can happen. But on top of that, it also depends on how you fall, right? Or how you kind of come off of that number one spot. As I think that there are ways that can kind of lead into more of an alliance's longevity compared to if you're just basically migrating out and wanting to do a pure rebuild, if you're trying to keep your core intact and you want to stay and work on it, if internal problems ended up happening and the strife caused you to split. I mean, there's really a lot of things that can happen, but just to kind of add on to that.
18 hours a day, you got a family, a wife, kids, like, it is very difficult. If you don't fully prioritize Call of Dragons at like towards the top of your list. So it sounded like a lot of people just kind of wanted to get some balance back in their life. And this is something that I've been talking about for a long time throughout my streams, even here. I'm like, look, guys, this is a game that will literally consume your soul. Like, you have to try to balance it as best you can. Like, even for me, I'm sure you guys have noticed I haven't really been uploading as much. And yeah, I've been feeling a little burnt out, guys. I'm not gonna lie. I've been feeling a little burnt out. As you guys know, like the past few months, I've been absolutely grinding on this road to partner, and I kind of fried myself. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not saying that I'm no longer gonna stream or go crazy, but just not as much, man. I'm just trying to, recuperate. I'm not trying to fully lose my complete passion for the game. So I recommend a lot of you guys that if you're starting to feel that certain way, chill out, move to a smaller alliance, right? Less of an activity requirement compared to being in these top alliances. Take a break, win some greatest heights at lower spend levels. You know what I mean? Like, have some fun. That's it. It leads me into my other thing now.
Okay, so for this one, I actually think that this is pretty good advice. The fact is that if you're playing at more of a mid-range or mid-tier alliance when you're not really focusing on maybe one of the top 25, demands can be a bit less. I mean, they may still be considerably high based on the group that those alliances and or kingdoms are in, but most likely not to a point where you're going to have maybe certain higher merit requirements, maybe certain activity, engagement, participation requirements may not be as high. And those are things that you might look forward to. Maybe even going to, a kingdom that is lower in power, maybe more inactive or dead, if you will, can also provide you opportunities to, again, if you're willing to do the migration once and then do a second migration, right? So you're kind of doing like a vacay migration going into a second, or just going somewhere that has a little bit lower overall requirements and demands. Those are things that can definitely help out your mental health, your psychological state, without a doubt, and can also provide you with just a little bit of a breath of fresh air, a little R&R, if you will. And those are things that I think when we talk about demands of top alliances, one of those things is often, like, when you think about migrating somewhere, one of the things that part of me wants to say often, but typically when you are in recruitment discussions, I don't usually see these kinds of things come up that much, which I think should be a minimum, which is to say, okay, well, what's your PvP requirements? Like, lay all those out on the table for me. It's not just how is the kingdom built, what kind of matchups are we looking for? Maybe they'll mention some merit requirements here and there. how do you guys do your kill events in Home Kingdom? What's your outlook when you're going into KVK? But literally breaking down, like, this is the expectation for how many merits you should be getting for the season, maybe what your weekly or your zone merits should be for each opening and maybe ending. This is what your kills should be, right? This is like the plus minuses that we want to see. Maybe your kill to heals, this is what we want to see. Like, if there's any number requirements and or specifics that should apply to what you should be seeing account-wise on your statistics from the beginning to the end of a KVK, those are things that you should be telling people up front before they migrate. So that way they have realistic expectations on what they are going to need to hit as potential goals and thresholds.
For me, one of the things that I think is...
And last thing I always want to add here about the content burnout. This is one of the reasons why I very much have transitioned. And some people will know that when I spent a lot of time doing this work and when I started doing content early on, I hardcore actively played my accounts. Even when I was managing and running jumper projects as basically an R6. And it was one of the things I learned very early, that if you're going to play an account and you're going to do content and you're not doing the content creation full time, like Gunz and I, we have families. So it's when you have other responsibilities, it just makes it harder, makes it more challenging. You can't stretch your time as much. You have to very much consolidate and kind of pick and choose and min-max your opportunities and your time windows. So for me, that's one of the reasons why I basically stopped actively playing an account. I have a scout in every kingdom. I still have my semi-main in 65 that, I still do some techs and I'll do some trainings and buildings and things like that, but very minimal because I just don't have the time to do it. So I would rather focus my attention on providing engaging, entertaining, and fun and informative and educational content. And so I think that could actually be something I would almost advise Gunz to do, is to scale back on the amount of playing. So that way you don't have these incredible high demands of being super active. You can then maybe get back into doing more consistent content, whether it's, trying to reach an every other day status. I mean, I think if you look at his video, sometimes it's every couple days, right, that he might upload. But even if he tries to hit a benchmark of every other day and then, kind of streaming periodically or intermittently in between, or when an opportunity arises, from lowering the playing activity, I think that could be one way to approach it. Again, it's up to him and how he wants to do it. But I can tell you, for me, it's so much easier when you are focusing more on the content and not necessarily having to play. However, that is an angle for some content creators, which is by playing, they're also able to provide different content. Some of that content is not what I'm currently producing, even though if I did play, if I played more consistently, I would love to cover those pieces of content. I just kind of know where I'm at right now and the kind of content that fits what I'm able to do and what I want to do. And I think each creator has to kind of figure that out for themselves.
A lot of people say that they weren't finding the game as fun anymore. And I think a reason for that is because a lot of the people here were Season 1 or Season 2 T5 players, meaning they were fighting against a lot of T4 players, right? They're fighting against a lot of T4 players, having a bunch of fun, just owning people. But you face it on lines like Echo, who's all T5. I'm pretty sure they're all T5. They might have one or two that are T4, but it's not as fun. Like, I still have fun, but it's not as fun as you send in those 3-4 T5 marches and you take out like 40 T3, T4 marches Season 1. You know what I'm saying? Like, it is not the same. That's not the same amount of fun. But that's why it's very important, I think, for you guys starting off the game to really ask yourselves.
Okay, so I want to pause here for a sec. This is a little cringy to me, but it is something that is a very sad realism, if you will, of some of these games, is that basically what he's saying is that it's fun to pub stomp. It's fun to bully. It's fun to beat up on the little guy. It's fun to be the bigger person punching down and not necessarily having to punch up. It is incredibly sad to, and I'm not saying like Gunz is, like sad to hear Gunz say that, but it's just sad that that is said in general. because really the game should be more about strategic and tactical prowess compared to you just being stronger than the other person, and that plays such a significant or however much of an advantage into you winning. And so, however, that is the way that some people think, that is the way that some people operate, and that isn't to say that Gunz feels that way, but for the people that he's talking about and mentioning that that could be a factor, it sucks to hear that in general, because you would just expect to see more out of the game, but that is kind of a sad realism of kind of where, you know, the state of often games in this genre, and I'm sure others, that we just kind of live in right now.
Like, am I having fun just because I'm absolutely owning everybody, or do I genuinely like the game? You know, like really start gauging it. So yeah, so those are the things that I talked about, was personal reasons and just people just not having fun. Surprisingly enough, some of these players, you know, some of these players that quit, like I said, we're going to keep them anonymous. I plan on eventually reaching out whenever they feel comfortable to do a little interview, kind of a one-on-one on just on their behalf, right? I don't want to just put people's business or names out there, even though a lot of you guys know who those names are, especially on a video. So surprisingly enough, like I was saying, they're saying the game was becoming too pay to win. Which is crazy, right? You would think players that spend that much money would feel more entitled to just spend more, right? Because it's going to increase the gap. But I think at a certain point, everyone kind of hits like enlightenment, I guess you can say. I don't know, like an epiphany. I don't know, like, holy crap, I'm spending so much money, you know? And that comes, like, this is not financial advice, okay? This is just what I do. You know, you got to look back and be like, damn, like, should I be spending this much money? As some of you guys know, I'm low spend now. I'm legitimately low spend now. Like, my budget just can't keep up with what's going on right now. Apparently, some people show me screenshots of them talking to support, saying that the fluctuation in pet prices, have you guys seen, were absolutely insane. They're not supposed to be that way, that it's supposed to get fixed. So make sure you guys put a pause on that. Right? Wait to see what these prices are going to be once they make it to where it's the correct tax inflation rate. Like, we're getting hit with some IRL inflation right now. So now, what am I going to do?
So I just want to point out, this is interesting to hear, because I have seen some screenshots and people talking about this with the pet prices and how it just is increased in the amount that you would have to spend. And the way I would kind of look at this, and I'd love to maybe do a kind of a deep dive investigative piece on this at some point, where we look at, you know, maybe we reach out to like the top 100, top 200 players, not only across COD, but also across Rock and maybe some other Kingdom builders, and maybe just kind of ask, you know, hey, can you give me a range of like how much you spent to maybe hit T5, and then how much do you spend to maintain? That to me, I think, would be very interesting to look at, because then you can see, okay, what's the average numbers that are there for COD, for Rock, for some of these other games, and then kind of comparing between.
Right, now that we kind of cover what's going on with some of the decisions that were made. Now, a little bit on the more personal side for Noir, there, from my understanding, there was a bit of a change in officers. There was a bit of a change in officers, and the thing that happens, guys, when there's a change in officers, you are getting people, like, if a specific group is used to a certain set of R4s, and then some other R4s, whether they're good or they're bad, all right, because I've seen both. I've seen good R4s that got promoted, but other people just didn't like that they got promoted, or, you know, or the new R4s didn't mesh well with the old R4s. So that's something for you guys to keep in mind, in R4s and R5s watching this video, is not everyone's going to mesh well together. And I feel like, you know, it's almost impossible to kind of gauge if people are going to mesh well together, but you can kind of tell just being in Discords, you know, like, are they interacting with each other? Do they agree on certain things? not that everyone should agree on everything. I think you should definitely have a group of guys who have like, and girls who have a different angle on certain things. It shouldn't be everyone thinking the same thing, right? Because then you're not going to cover all angles on a specific problem. So that was one of the things. Now, where am
So this is interesting that he says this. This is one of those kind of management type topics that you guys know I love talking about, and I think is such a huge impact into kingdom builders that just isn't really discussed and or publicized enough. It's not really discussed or having these kind of public conversations about as much as they should be. It's almost kind of like this taboo thing that we just don't really talk about all that often. However, this is incredibly important because it often comes down to how is the R5 picking R4s? Does the R5 have a good pulse on the alliance community, on the players they're considering? Are they, again, it's the same thing as like promoting someone who has like, or hiring someone who has a criminal background, right? And again, just a very basic approach. But these are the kinds of things that you would look at is what's their history? How have they interacted with other people? How helpful are they? And then is the R5 the, kind of best judge of character? Can they really be objective when they're looking at R4s to promote? And do they have a good understanding of these alliance dynamics to make sure that they're putting the best people in a position to be successful, and also that will not see a lot of pushback from the other members? So it's I probably could do a deep dive on it, but just, I agree here wholeheartedly.
am I going? Am I leaving Noir? Am I leaving Noir to go to TFS with my main account? Am I leaving Noir to go to Echo with my main account? Short answer, no. I'm not leaving Noir, guys. I personally cannot leave Noir right now because just because things are looking rough for Noir right now doesn't mean I'm just going to leave, right? I don't think, I don't have some of the reasons other people have to not want to be here. The way that I look at it is, yes, Noir is going through a rough time right now, but even though we're going through a rough time, we are still 18 billion power at 140 members. So we are going to get like 60 more members, right? So that's some of your guys' chance in this video watching. If you would like to join amongst the ranks with the strongest alliances in the game, they were last season, it's going to be harder to get in. So if some of you guys are interested in joining, who's what title now, right? So I can't just leave people because things are getting rough, right? Because in my personal opinion, it's like, what does that say about you? Like every alliance that just goes, that takes a downward spiral, are you just gonna leave? You know what I mean? Like where is like some sense of loyalty, And like I've mentioned to you guys before, the only way that I would personally leave Noir is if I'm trying to get a new angle of the game, right? If I'm trying to get a new angle of the game for content purposes. But in this case, like it's not gonna be any better, Because what if you leave to another alliance thinking it's gonna be better, but it's not? Because I've seen that happen multiple times, and then your previous alliance ends up, overcoming their struggles and moving on. So, yeah, guys, I'll be staying in Noir.
So just to comment on this real quick, right? So Gunz says that he doesn't want to leave, feels like it would, what does that kind of say about the loyalty, about sticking with it? But at the same time, he also says that he's there for content, right? That was one of the reasons why he joined the war, as he just alluded to, is making a move with his main for content purposes. If you think about it like this, he has one character that's in TFS now in Kingdom 40 that is kind of this like, not revenge, but like rebuilding story. Then he has his main that's in the war, which is still a top alliance and a top kingdom in the game. So he's kind of already covering two sides of it. Overall, I don't really think it makes a lot of sense for him to move. The only thing that would really be different is if he wanted to maybe go join a different top alliance, or maybe kind of like a mid-tier alliance. But, most likely if he left, it would probably be for another top alliance. So yeah, I don't really see a reason for him leaving. I also think the loyalty part is... It is a very good angle, when at least a good topic, when you think about the fact that some people will jump ship if you lose a season, or if things just feel like they're not going well. Oftentimes I feel that really is kind of on the management team for the alliance to set appropriate expectations. You will have some top alliances that even if they don't win a season all out, but they still have a lot of PvP, that's good enough, and they won't leave, or you won't see like a major level of drop off. But again, that's probably a more deep dive for another time.
places that I might go if I were to leave Noir. Not this season, maybe the next one, maybe never. I don't know. I think YY was over there with Sheesh is one of them, and then my boy Captain CoD with the We Are One Alliance, and potentially also with TFS. But I already have my baby Gunz account, and I'm doing good work there with it. So I don't know. Also, might as well put this into this video. Echo rallied me, guys. I was getting to them. I feel like he organizes his routes. Definitely put it up there. Hit that sub button, guys.
Okay. So this is pretty much the last part. The YY thing for going to 314 I do think is interesting, even if he maybe considered joining an alliance or kingdom that maybe wasn't, and I don't know if they're predominantly non-English speaking or not, but if he went to like an international alliance, for example, I think that could be a really interesting angle too as well. Like maybe something like SSG or AMZ, IMB, I think, so some others that are like some of the top Asian-based alliances. Could be interesting. But yeah, the 314 thing is like the up and coming. Right, is why I get a past Mephisto. That's a different angle too as well. So yeah, man, listen, it will be interesting. Like I said, I'll be curious to see kind of what ends up coming out of this over the next number of days. And like I mentioned in the beginning, right, if you're someone who is into war, you know, you're staying, you're leaving, you know, if you're interested in kind of sharing your story over the past couple seasons, I'd love to hear. Feel free just to reach out to me on Discord anytime. Would love to know your thoughts, what you guys think on this one, and my feedback that I provided. And let me know in the comments down below. That's going to be it for me. As always, until next time, we'll catch you later.